every time we do it, I have to go through all of those steps, and then it saves the passwords. But yesterday I said.
The County Court of Common Pleas is now in session. The Honorable Christine Kersey presiding.
Thank you. You may be seated. Alrighty, by a show of hands, I am reiterating or asking, have you all followed my previous admonitions and not talked about this case with anyone by hand? Show of hands. Excellent. All 18 have indicated they are in compliance. You may call your next witness.
We call Brian Peterman to the stand.
Mr. Peterman, raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat. Once you're seated, you can remove your mask, and then I'll just ask that you keep your voice up and speak into the microphone, please. You do. And we actually now have the software to actually then save it and print it out. I got to figure out how I'm supposed to do it.
Not right now. You can actually use your finger.
Okay. Good morning, sir. If you would, please introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your full name. Yeah, go ahead and take your mask off. Introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your full name and spell your last name for the court reporter.
Brian S. Peterman, Peterman.
And sir, how are you employed?
I'm employed with the Department of Commerce, Division of the State Fire Marshal's Office.
And how long have you been with the State Fire Marshal's Office?
Approximately 35 years.
All right. So what is your current, you said your current title is what?
Fire investigator?
All right. And in 35 years,
Yes.
has that been your title the entire time?
No, I've served in various different divisions in the Fire Marshal's Office, starting out in the Code Enforcement section, and then in the transferring into the Environmental section. And then at the Training Academy, I was there for a few years, and then transferred in 1999 into the Fire Investigation Unit.
So since 1999, so that'd be 22 to 23 years, you have been an investigator for the Ohio State Fire Marshal.
That's correct.
Prior to being with the Ohio State Fire Marshal, what was your highest level of education?
I was a high school graduate, and then I've since then graduated with an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree.
All right. And did you go to college while you worked for the fire marshal?
Yes.
All right. So you were pretty young when you started with the fire marshal.
Yes.
How old were you?
I believe I was 20.
And was that pretty young for somebody to be hired with the Ohio State Fire Marshal?
Yes, back then I was the youngest person they had ever hired.
Okay. And that's why you look so young, and you've been there for 35 years? Is that?
Something like that.
All right. In order to become an investigator, because you said you had gone through some other jobs prior to that with the fire marshal, what kind of training did you need or was required for you to be an investigator?
Okay, I'm a certified firefighter, certified fire officer, certified fire inspector. I'm also a certified fire investigator with the International Association of Arson Investigators. I graduated from the Akron University Police Academy because in order to be a fire marshal, fire investigator, you have to be a police officer also.
All right. And when you said the Akron Police Academy, is that sanctioned by OPATA, the Ohio Police Officer Training Academy?
Yes, it is.
All right, because we've had prior testimony about that, and so you have an OPATA certification then,
Yes, I do.
which means you are a law enforcement officer, allowing you then to be an investigator for the fire marshal.
That's correct.
Okay. During your career as an investigator, how many, if you can, tell us how many fires you would have investigated for purposes of determining whether they're accidental or intentionally set?
Several hundred.
All right. And is that your primary function at this point in time?
Yes, that's all I do is I'm assigned an area within the state of Ohio, and that's all I do is go from fire scene to fire scene to investigate the origin and cause of fires.
All right. And just so we have some sense, first of all, what geographic area are you assigned to respond?
I'm assigned to the Northeast District. I cover 5 counties, which include Summit County, Stark County, Wayne County, Holmes County, and Medina County.
All right. And approximately how many fires a month do you investigate?
It varies month, anywhere between 75 and 80 to 100 fires a year.
All right. And in regards to making the determinations, because it sounds like you've had a lot of training, you've had a lot of positions, and you're certified in a lot of areas. I think you said like fire inspector. What does a fire inspector do?
Fire inspector is somebody that conducts building inspections for code violations. A fire investigator that I'm now does the origin and cause of fires.
All right. And did you have specific training for that?
Yes.
And what kind of training would that be?
So through the State Fire Marshal's Office, Ohio Fire Academy, I've went through all levels of fire investigation training, attended the National Fire Academy. I was a previous K-9 handler for ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, which I received extensive training in K-9 detection. Various other continuing education that we have to keep in order to keep our certification as a fire investigator.
All right. And isn't there a statute or requirement that the state fire marshal put on required training each year?
Yes, we offer at least twice a year for prosecutors training, and then we also put on classes at the Ohio Fire Academy and throughout the state of Ohio at some of the, like Tri-C, Cuyahoga Community College on fire investigation.
And you've indicated that you had a lot of training. Do you also train?
Yes, I'm a certified instructor, both with the state of Ohio and for APATA.
All right. And how long have you been certified trainer?
Several years.
Okay. And just so we have some sense, approximately how many times have you taught a class?
Several hundred.
All right.
Throughout the state of Ohio.
All right, so let's direct your attention specifically to why we're here today. Did you have an opportunity or an occasion to investigate a fire at 719 Fultz Street in the city of Akron, Summit County, Ohio?
Yes, I did.
And how would you have been involved in that?
The Akron Fire contacted our office the morning of the fire, requesting assistance to investigate the fire. So we were called in to assist the Akron Fire Department.
And we've had some prior testimony that you, or the Ohio State Fire Marshal, is actually an assist agency. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So unless you are asked in by the jurisdiction in which the fire took place, you leave it alone, you stay out of it.
That's correct.
All right. In this case, you were asked by the Akron Fire Department to come and assist in this fire. Is that fair?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Yep. And my eyes aren't there.
There you go.
So for the record, Judge, I am going to use a thumb drive with Exhibit 43, State's Exhibit number 43, which will have 58 slides on it.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, did you say what date it was that you got that call?
I believe April 18th in 2016.
All right. And so you don't live in the city of Akron, is that fair?
That's correct.
So you had to travel to get here.
Yes.
What time would you have arrived at the scene?
I believe it was approximately 8:20, 8:30.
All right. And you would not be involved in the suppressing of the fire or putting the fire out?
That's correct.
All right. So for you, you don't have to be there during that period of time?
That's correct.
Is there any reason why you as a fire investigator would have to be there while the house is actually on fire?
No.
And why is that?
That's a suppression activity, a function of the fire department, not of the fire marshal's office.
All right. And you would still have the evidence or the things needed in certain circumstances to be able to still make the determination of whether it's accidental or intentional?
Yes.
Okay. So when you arrive in the scene, do you have a method or manner in which you start and do your investigation?
Yeah, we use what we call the scientific method, the methodology, and systematic approach. So every fire scene is conducted in the same method all the time.
All right. And so how would that work?
So what we do is we start from the outside of the structure and work our way around, do a 360, and then work our way into the interior portion of the structure.
All right. So when you say a 360, you're going to go all the way around the
All
structure?
the way around the structure, photographing and looking at burn patterns and the general condition of the structure itself.
All right. So basically that would be a visual inspection at that point?
Yes.
All right. And when you said go around the 360, is it clockwise or counterclockwise?
Usually clockwise.
All right. And we had testimony that you would label south, west, north, and east.
We use compass directions.
All right. Which is contrary to some other place which use A, B, C, and D sides.
Yeah, the fire department, for tactical purposes, use A, B, and C. For investigative purposes, we use compass directions.
All right. And I only bring that up because later on when the firemen talk,
Yes.
there might be some clarification.
Yes.
Okay. So let me, and then, so you said that you would do the outside, then do the inside photographing during that period of time?
Yes.
And so let's start with that. First of all, I'm going to show you the first slide of State's Exhibit number 43. Do you recognize this?
Yes, that's the Fultz Avenue area,
All right.
Fultz Street Avenue.
And there's several yellow boxes around homes. Do you recognize the house that you were investigating?
Yes, 719 Fultz Street.
All right. And it's obviously clearly labeled 719 Fultz on that slide, correct?
Yes.
And so you indicated that you started with the exterior. So what are we looking at here?
This would be the front side of the structure, which would be the south side of the structure.
All right. And this picture we're looking at here would obviously be after the fire is out, fair?
Yes.
And at this point, has anything been done or disturbed other than what was necessary to put the fire out?
No.
Okay. And prior to you taking the stand, did you have an opportunity to review State's Exhibit number 43 and all the 58 slides involved?
Yes.
And of those 58 slides, of those, the ones that were photographs, that we're about to see, did they all accurately depict the scene that you saw that day?
That is correct.
All right. So this would be the front and south side. What are we looking at here?
That would be the south and the west side of the house.
All right. So at this point in time, you've just started your inspection. At this point, do you notice anything that is significant to you as a fire investigator?
Yeah, so just to clarify, as I was doing my walk around, Investigator Illy was behind me photographing, and I did my visual walk around inspection.
He took the photos, but you've had an opportunity to see them, and you're indicating that
Yes.
they are accurate representations?
Yes.
Thank you.
So this shows that the fire damage, and what we're looking for when we do our exterior examination is burn patterns, intensity patterns, movement patterns, and the general damage that the fire has left behind.
All right. And in this situation, what strikes you as significant, if anything?
So in this particular photo here, the significant damage in this photo is to the front south side of the house. And this particular photo, at one time prior to the fire, this structure had a full covered porch roof covering the front porch. And you can see with this photo that front porch roof is completely consumed by the fire.
And so, porch fires, are they of some significance to you?
Well, they're always, porch fires is always a significant. I mean, they're outside, burning. You always have to make a determination as where did it start from the exterior and go interior, or go from the interior to the exterior.
All right, so at this point in time, you've noted that the fire appears to be significant on the porch and had done a lot of damage to that structure. Actually, looks like it completely took the whole roof of the porch off.
Yes.
Slide 6. What are we looking at here?
So this is the west side of the house. They're again showing some of the fire patterns from the front of the house extending up towards the roof level on the west side of the house, and just the general damage that the fire has left.
All right, now you see there's a yellow arrow that's been
Yes.
placed on that photograph. What's the significance of that arrow, or what is it?
So it's what we
meant to do?
identify as fire patterns, and this is an upward, outward, like a V pattern, what we call it. And you can see there's more fire damage down low, and then it's working its way upward and outward. And what it's doing here is going from the porch floor level, and then as the porch roof is consumed, it's working its way up to the other portion of the roof, to the attic area of the structure.
And what does this information help you determine?
There again, it's telling us, it's identifying the origin area of the fire, and we can see by looking at these other windows, there's no fire, smoke, or heat venting out these other windows. So it's telling us, it's an indication that the fire is outside versus inside.
Okay. Now showing you slide number 7 of 58. What are we looking at here?
So there again, the west side of the house, but kind of towards the back part area, and you can see. I think I can touch this. Does that show up on the screen? No.
You have to go, yes, you can.
Oh, let me.
You have to hit the annotator, Mr.
Oh,
McCrinty.
you mean Mr. D'Angelo?
If you hit the annotate button, then he can. There you go. Okay,
Oh.
so see in the right-hand corner,
Right up here.
up at the
Yep.
top, hit that. But you should be able to erase whatever's
Clear is
on
down.
there
Clear.
first.
Yeah, you see clear.
Yep.
Pencil on the right, the second column, second down. Yep. No, sorry, keep going down, there's an eraser.
Yeah.
One more down. There you go. You can erase everything you've already done.
Maybe you should come on down, Judge.
No, he's got it.
I got it. I'm hitting clear, it's just not working.
What'd you say?
I'm hitting the clear button.
That's okay, he's got it going.
Okay.
All right, so in this photo, what I see here is some what we call irregular burn patterns, not consistent with the other burn patterns that we've seen going up to the attic area.
So if you, yeah, you gotta now hit the highlight button.
And so those irregular burn patterns are here, 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 and then here, in this area here.
All right. And so when you say irregular, why is it irregular?
Well, the fire starts on the front part of the house. You would not, and there's no fire coming out these windows. The windows most likely were broken by the fire department for suppression purposes or ventilation purposes. And as you can see, the window frames and all that, there's no heat, no fire coming out those. So you should not have any of these patterns here.
All right. Showing you slide 8 of 58. Would this just be,
So you can go down to the very bottom and hit clear. There you go.
this is just a different angle looking more backwards toward the same photograph, correct?
That's correct.
And so in this picture, we can actually see a satellite dish. Do you see that?
Yes.
All right. And let's move to slide 9. This is up close of that satellite dish, correct?
Yes.
And what are we looking at here that's significant?
So there again, those same irregular patterns. The majority of the fire is not on this side by the satellite dish, but what I see is this here and down in here, this area here, you have some smoke staining as if something was burning on the siding itself.
All right. Do you recall what material the siding was made of?
I believe it was aluminum siding.
All right. And is that significant in, I guess, being a fuel for a fire?
No, the aluminum melts. Basically, as it's heated, it's melts. It's not a fuel to the fire.
All right. As opposed to a wood siding?
That's correct.
All right. Showing you slide 10 of 58. What are we looking at here?
So that's just the northwest corner of the house.
All right. And slide 11.
North side of the house, there again, looking at the windows, there's no fire or smoke venting out those windows. The windows were closed at the time of the fire, so it indicates again that the fire is not inside the house.
All right. And when you say the fire's not inside
It
the
doesn't
house,
originate inside the
all
house.
right. And slide 12.
That's the northeast corner.
All right. And similar assessments here?
Yes.
All right. And slide 13 of 58.
So there again, you can see this is the east side of the house. As you look at these windows, there's no fire smoke. These windows are most likely broken out for ventilation purposes by the fire department. You have some smoke and heat coming out of this lower level door, but there again, most of the fire damage is coming from the front portion of the structure and working its way back and working its way up the roof line of that house.
All right. And maybe this picture's a little bit better here. So slide 14 of 58. Does that show a little bit better the pattern on the front?
Yeah, so here's like the attic, where the attic roof would have, or the porch roof, and as it consuming the roof and the fire is going underneath the roof and working its way up this side of the structure to the attic area.
Okay. And then slide 15 of 58.
That's just the lower area of the east side by the front porch steps. And this siding was most likely, this was some vinyl siding here and stuff that was most likely pulled off by the fire department for making sure that there wasn't fire burning underneath the siding.
All right, because underneath, does that look like it's wood underneath, or is that also?
That might still be aluminum siding there. There was a combination of, like, they had did some remodeling or something.
Okay. Slide 16, well, before we start discussing that, let's talk about the other things we do. So you're talking about whether you're going to determine whether it's an accident or intentional. Obviously, there are certain things that maybe are common knowledge, but that are common things that cause accidental fires in homes. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right. What types of things are those, and do you look for them?
So we look for accidental fire causes. Electrical, malfunction of furnaces, gas furnaces, electric furnaces, malfunctions of any electrical appliance. Maybe the stove was left on inside, smoking. Those are all signs of accidental causes.
All right. And so slide number 16 of 58, what are we looking at here?
So we're looking at the electrical meter there again. So we know that this house had electrical service to it. We document the meter and stuff. And the damage done to the meter was all from exposure to heat. It wasn't causation to the fire. So the electric meter didn't have anything to do causing the fire.
And you say this damage is from heat. Is there something based on your expertise that you can tell that versus whether it was the cause of the fire?
Yeah, so you still have a lot of the main wiring intact here that goes into the meter. The meter itself is just, like I said, the plastic covering for the meter is melted, but the meter itself is pretty much undamaged.
All right. And so if this was the cause, what would it look like to you?
It would be extremely extensive fire damage to that you would not even be able to see any of this here. It would have been totally pretty much destroyed by the fire.
All right. Moving to slide 17 of 58, what are we looking at here?
This is just an overview of that meter, and behind, you can see where there was some fire extension from the fire itself, but not from the meter.
All right, so this is, oops, I hit the wrong button there. All right, so.
Same thing there, just the meter.
Yep. All right, so I'm trying to use my marker here, but it's not working. Show us where that meter is we were just looking at. All right, so that's just the meter showing you in the debris.
Yes.
All right. Moving to slide 18 of 58, what are we looking at now?
So looking towards the southeast of the house.
All right, and again, now we're just looking at the other side of the porch.
Yeah, so you can see there again why we determined that the fire originated on our front porch. There again, this right here, fire pattern wise, is that we see here's where the porch roof was, and this fire is coming up underneath this and working its way up to the roof line, to the attic area.
All right, and slide 19 of 58, what are we looking at
This
here?
is the porch steps located on the east side.
Okay. And slide 20 of 58.
Close up of the kind of the east section of the porch with the front door and the chair there. This is before we touched any of the fire debris.
All right. And this looks to be about the porch also. This is slides 21 of 58.
Yeah, same thing, just the eastern portion of that front porch.
All right, and you talked about the roof. I see there's a window in that door, and right above that, it looks like there's an area where there's slats and opening kind of to the house where you don't see the siding.
Yeah.
Would that be where you were describing the roof was attached?
So yeah, the roof section would have been attached up in this area here. Yeah, up in this area right there.
Oh, it's not. I don't think it's showing. Okay.
And then it would have come down like this at an angle and went across.
Very good. All right, thank you. Moving to slide 22, and this is just a more full view of that.
Yeah, so this is the western half of the front porch.
All right. And then it's slide 23.
So that are just investigators getting ready to sift through the fire debris.
All right, and that's actually you in the picture, is that?
Yes, in the black.
All right.
So what we've done here is remove some of this big debris, and now we're starting to sift through the finer debris.
All right, so that whole line of debris that's behind you, that didn't happen from the fire. That happened from you guys moving and getting it out of the way.
Yeah, so we went through all that carefully and then put it aside.
And why do you do that?
Just to get it out of the way so we can continue sifting through the remaining debris.
All right. Now, at this point in time, you're doing all this. At this point in time, you don't know that there's necessarily video showing somebody walking up to this house and lighting it. Fair?
I believe at this time, depending on time frame, that I was aware of the video down that the gentleman had down the street.
Okay, but not the one from 719 Fultz?
No, no.
Okay. So now, going to slide 24, we talked with Investigator Weber yesterday, and he told us about the placards and his K-9 India. Were you there and present for that?
Yes.
All right. And so these placards, who put the placards there?
So the yellow placards with the numbers I would have put there, and those are based on when Investigator Weber deploys his K-9, and he probably explained this yesterday, when the K-9 alerts, he puts a orange arrow marker down, and then we follow him with the yellow number markers, because that's going to show where we're going to collect the samples at.
All right, and so that number, so now you have marker number, or placard number 1, and then when you collect that sample, is that then, that sample then number 1?
Yes.
All right, and so then when it goes to the lab and is tested, and if there's a report, that report then would indicate the result of number 1 and would be listed as number 1, is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay. And same all the way down,
Yes.
consistent 1, 2, 3, 4 through 10.
Yes.
Okay. Slide 25, that's just, is that just a closer up of the area where the dog India hit?
Yes.
Okay. And slide 26,
Yes.
and that's a close up of area, placard number 2.
Yes.
Slide 27.
3 and 4.
And this, just because it's not clear, where is this located?
This is the front part of the porch, more on the west side.
All right. And slide 28,
Just a close-up of 3,
slide 29,
close-up of 4.
slide 30,
So this shows 3, 4, and 5.
okay? Now these are all seem to be on the ground in front of the porch, is that fair?
Yeah, so you could see also in this slide here is that you have more fire damage on the left side versus the right side.
All right. And then slide 31,
5, yes.
okay. And you said more on the left side than the right side, and which my arrow would work here. On the right behind the placard 5, it seems like there's a lot of charcoaled material.
Yes.
But on the right side,
That was all gone.
all right, but on the right side of that picture, it looks like is that paint still there visible?
Yeah, this is the fascia of the bottom portion of the porch, the fascia wood.
Okay,
So this is all intact versus on the other side, it was all consumed.
all right. And so what does that tell you?
Fire direction travel,
All right.
movement patterns.
All right, so even though the entire porch looks to be burned, you can now start focusing in more on the left side of the porch versus the right side of the porch for origin. Is that fair?
Yes.
And slide number 32.
Looking from east to west on the
Now-
front porch. This is after all the debris had been sifted through and removed off of the porch.
All right. And what's the point of removing all the debris off the porch?
Well, we're looking for any clues, any evidence of, accidental causes, electric wiring, smoking debris, any of that stuff,
All right.
as well as intentional causes.
All right. And slide 33, what does this show?
This is just a chair there again, showing fire direction, movement, intensity patterns. You can see on the right side of the chair, the arm and most of the chair is somewhat still intact, versus the left side of the chair by the front door where that is consumed by the fire. So we're saying the fire direction is coming from the west to the east.
All right. And slide number 34.
So this just shows our evidence markers and an overview of that area.
All right, so what markers are depicted here?
7, 8, 6, 7, and 8.
Okay. And again, those are all the markers that we previously heard were alerts by India.
That's correct.
In slide 35,
That is evidence marker number 9, where India alerted on the step of the front porch on the east side.
all right, and now on 9, it looks like there's a bag next to it.
So just a collection of our samples that we took there, number 9.
In slide 37,
Shows evidence being collected, that was collected there, evidence 6 of that flooring on the porch there.
in slide 38,
Again, it shows evidence that was put in the fire debris bag, gloves, and marker 7 there.
all right, why are the gloves in these pictures?
Well, we have to, when we take samples, we put a pair of gloves on, new pair of gloves, clean pair of gloves, and then to show that, then as our sample is collected, then we leave that glove and make sure that's photographed and documented.
All right, so each time you pick up a sample, you put on new gloves?
Yes,
And why do you do that?
to prevent any cross-contamination.
All right. And when you say cross-contamination, just in case, so if you pick up something with an accelerant on it, with those gloves, put it in a bag, then you go pick something else, you could transfer the accelerant from one item to the next.
That's correct.
Oh, and you do that to prevent that.
Yes.
And slide 39,
Just a close-up of number 8.
and the evidence bag where it's collected.
Yes.
And so now we're slide 40.
So down in the lower right there, you can see number 10. That was that satellite area.
Okay.
Just a
And
close-up of that area.
that's slide 41 you're describing now? Yeah.
Yes.
And then slide 42.
Then the sampling, then
Okay.
that's after we put it in the bag and sample.
And so now, slide 43 is just indicates interior of 719 Fultz, it's a title slide, and then slide 44.
So this is the interior of the living room, and what we're looking at here is showing that the fire come from the outside to the inside, not from the inside to the outside.
And how does this picture tell a layperson that, or an expert at that?
Degree of damage that we see, there again, it's movement intensity patterns. We can see that there's still cloth and wood that's uncharred, unburned on the couch. You can see some of the other contents within the home that's unburned, that tells us that the fire was not inside.
Okay. And slide 45.
There again, just additional documentation of the interior of the living room. You can see here that the couch still has a lot of cloth material, wood material, the same as this couch right here. And you can see some of the contents in the house that's unburned.
Now on that couch, strike that. To the left of the couch, there's an item there in the floor, in the middle of the floor there. What is that?
This would be like a walker or assist walking device.
Okay. Slide 46.
So this is showing the area directly above those couches, the ceiling area. So the fire itself, and the fire department probably most likely pulled some of the plaster down. In this type of home, the plaster is covering the second floor wood joist. And you can see the degree of damage on these wood floor joists. And there again, it's indicating to us fire burns upward and outward. So the fire comes in after the fire starts on the front porch, breaks the front picture window, and then comes in at a high level of the window, and then goes up across the ceiling, eventually consuming the plaster, and fire penetrates on the wood floor joist.
All right. And that fire, kind of like water, as it goes up, it's looking for somewhere to
Path
go.
of least resistance.
Okay. Slide 47.
There again, just showing that our degree of damage is higher up versus low towards the floor, indicating fire coming from the outside to the inside of this room.
And so if you look at there's a door frame there. Can you show us that when you say high and low?
So we have more fire damage from the ceiling down to about this level right here.
Okay.
And the rest of it is some heat damage throughout, but the majority of the fire damage is from the ceiling down.
All right. And so in some of these pictures, and I'm going to move to slide 48, in some of these pictures, it looks like the floor is completely blackened. Why would you not assume that that is part of the burn or the fire?
So that's what we call the smoke line of demarcation. When a house burns, and when you have a fire in a compartment or a building, is that the smoke fills up the area first. And then right directly behind the smoke is what we call the heat. So the smoke's coming, it's filling up that room, and then here comes the heat from the fire. And then the heat starts to fill up that room, and then here comes the fire behind that heat.
All right. And then when that fire you talked about is going across the ceiling, trying to find the path of least resistance, and it burns all the material on the ceiling, where does that material then end up?
Then it ends up on the floor. You know, the plasters, a lot of it ends up on the floor.
All right. Slide number 49.
So there again, this is the kitchen area, just showing the smoke and heat line, what we call the smoke and heat line of demarcation. There again, as that fire is burning outside, it's looking for a path, a flow path, and it's heating up everything that it comes in contact with, and that's why you see the fire damage. And the smoke damage, it's filling up that entire house with smoke.
Now, also in your investigation of the inside of the home, your examination of the inside of the home, is the kitchen of importance to you?
And we always look at the appliances, the stove, make sure that the burners weren't left on the stove, there wasn't something left on a heat pan or a skillet or something left on.
And what about like plugs and outlets and things of that nature?
Yeah, we look at all that to see, make any determination that the fire would have been started from inside that area.
And based on your examination of this kitchen at 719 Fultz, was there anything in there from the appliances or outlets that would indicate that the fire may have started inside?
No, there was no indication of any cause of fire within inside the kitchen.
All right, so now slide 50 is a title slide indicating second floor 719 Fultz. So let's look at slide 51. So what are we looking at here?
So this is the stairway leading to the second floor. And the significance of any stairway is it's a flow path for smoke and heat and fire to travel. And so in this case here, once that front window was broken out by the fire that started outside on the porch, it travels into the interior. And as we talked previously, the path of least resistance. The stairways acts like a chimney effect for the smoke and all the superheated gases to travel up to the second floor. In a two-story house, most likely where all the bedrooms that people sleep at.
And that's significant as much, well, strike that. So when you say the gases, what's the significance of the gases?
Well, that's what people breathe in when they're inside a fire and they die inside a fire. Is they inhale the superheated gases, the smoke, products of combustion, and then they get a high CO level, which then renders them, unconscious, and eventually they can't get out. And eventually they die in a fire.
All right. Did you ever, as part of your job with the House State Fire Marshal, were you ever a fireman?
I still am a firefighter.
Okay, and do you actually, did you have the occasion to fight fires?
Yes.
Could you please describe and you've been inside homes that have been on fire?
Yes.
Could you describe for the jury what the conditions are like when you are inside a home that's on fire?
The conditions are you cannot see anything. You cannot even see your glove in front of your hand. As firefighters, when we go inside, two reasons why we're going inside a house. One is we're looking for victims. Two is we're trying to locate the fire to put the fire out. So as we're searching For victims, you can't see, so we have to use our hands, use our tools that have long handles to try to search for victims, because you cannot see. And one is you can always feel the heat coming down on your head and on your back and stuff, so you have to be aware of fire conditions within inside the structure also, because like I said, you can't see anything, so you have to kind of go by what senses you have left, you know, feeling that heat as you're working your way into the house looking for or searching for victims.
And when you would go into those homes, would you have a breathing apparatus?
Yes, we would have a self-contained breathing apparatus that gives you about 30 minutes or less of air.
All right. So as a firefighter, you would have oxygen, so that wouldn't be an effect on you.
Right.
And you would have clothing that would help with the heat.
That's correct.
All right. And it's still, is it fair to say that it's still difficult conditions?
Absolutely, yes.
So even though there might not be fire actually inside the house initially, because if you've told us that at this point it seems like the fire is starting outside, once that fire breaks that window, even though there might not be fire flames inside, what would be the condition on the inside?
So you would still have the smoke and heat, and in this case here, the fire eventually gets inside the house, it's working in the walls and the ceilings because it's penetrated those protective areas outside, and now has worked its way inside.
All right. Slide number 52 of 58. What are we seeing here?
So this is the second floor hallway.
So would this be the top of the step there we see at the bottom of the screen?
Yep, top of the step, looking into the hallway.
All right. And would the bathrooms then be in one of these doors here to the right?
I believe the first one to the right is the bathroom.
All right. Slide 53 of 58 is also a title slide indicating basement of 719 Fultz. Before we go to that slide, sometimes, you know, it's questioned like, well, why don't people just run out the door, or why don't they just do this? Is there any reason that happens? Is there any phenomenon that goes on or happens?
Well, yeah, the effects of the carbon monoxide being produced by the smoke of the fire. When you're sleeping, you're at your time where you're not aware of what's going on around. You're in a deep sleep and stuff, and then you have a fire, and then you inhale smoke, and then your CO level goes up. You start to lose your level of consciousness.
All right.
And you get confused, eventually rendering unconscious, and then not being able to be aware of your surroundings to get out of the fire.
All right. So slide 54 of 58.
This is going down the basement steps.
Okay. And slide 55 of 58.
Just an overview of the basement there and the bed that the one occupant was staying in.
And as we discussed earlier in the kitchen, there are things in the basement that sometimes can be the causes for accidental fires.
Sure.
Okay. And what types of things in the basement would you be looking for?
So in most houses, your furnace, your hot water tank, your gas meter, electrical appliances are in the basement.
All right. So like in this photograph here on slide 55, we can see there's a refrigerator. Looks like there's a radio or stereo, TV, things of that nature. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as this, it looks like the floor is full of water. That would be from the
Suppression of the fire.
all right. And as far as fire damage in this basement, how much, if any, was there?
No fire damage, just some moderate smoke damage in there.
All right. And slide 56 of 58,
There again, just an overview of that basement.
and over here would be the hot water
Hot
area?
water tank, yes.
Okay. And slide 57 of 58,
That is a picture of the electrical panel, service panel.
and what's the purpose of inspecting that?
So there again, we have to document the house was serviced with, gas and electric. We're documenting electrical panel, documenting the lack that there is no fire damage within that panel or around that panel.
All right, and would it be fair to say that that would be the source where all electricity that goes into the house would come through that panel?
That's correct.
So is that that could be a source of accidental fire.
Yes.
And slide 50, I guess slide 58 is blank. All right. You talked about the fact that at some point in time you did see during your investigation at the scene that day a video from 714 Fultz, the house catty corner, so to speak. Is that fair?
Yes.
And when you were able to visualize that, what did you see?
So when I got there to the house, I was with one of the Akron fire investigators. There was 2 Akron police officers there viewing the video. And at that time, they had showed us that they had seen a subject in the video running up to the house that was on fire and appeared to be carrying a jug or some type of container up to the house and igniting a fire.
All right, so now when you say igniting the fire, do you actually see that in the video from the?
So you don't see him that person actually dumping the material, but when he lights it, you can see the flash.
All right. So basically, you see the guy at an angle go behind to the side of the house, and then you see a flash?
Yes.
Okay.
Question.
At some point in time, were you aware that there was cameras or surveillance cameras on 719 Fultz?
Yes.
All right. And did somebody collect those as far as you know?
Yes.
Not the cameras, but the I guess the DVR.
Yes.
At some point in time, were you able to then visualize that?
Yeah, that was several months after the fire.
And why did it take so long to do that?
Initially, when APD went into the house and collected the DVR, I believe they collected the cable DVR and not the video camera DVR. So they had to go back in and find the video camera DVR and collect that and then have it looked at to retrieve those videos off of that.
Okay. And of course, that DVR had been inside the house where their fire was, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So when you, did you then ultimately have a chance to view that?
Yes.
Prior to viewing that, did you then take all the information you had gathered from your investigation, and ultimately did you make an opinion as to whether this was an accidental or intentionally set fire?
Yes, I did.
All right. What was that opinion?
That it was an incendiary fire, that was an intentionally set fire.
And where would the origin have been?
The origin would have been on the front porch of the house,
Which?
on the west side.
Okay. And that opinion that you're giving here today, is that within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes.
All right. At some point then, did you, you said you had viewed that video of from 719 Fultz. I'm going to show you, Matt approached me.
Show the council. You did already.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as state's exhibits number 54, 55, and 56. Tell me if you recognize those or what they depict.
Yes, these are 3 frames from a video from where the fire scene, where the fire occurred at, from their video surveillance system.
All right. And then it also shows an aerial photo of the area, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, may I? Do these exhibits accurately depict the video, or at least a snapshot of that video that you saw?
That's correct, it does.
Your Honor, may I?
You may publish to the jury, thank you.
All right, so states 54. Let's see here. And of course, we have glare.
If you shut off, okay, so my understanding is if you actually shut off the light on the camera,
Yeah,
on
I
the
did.
dot camera, it won't be so.
Yeah, I did. I thought I did that last time. See,
Maybe
that.
Joe can help you.
Well, so there's the lamp on, there's the lamp off. It seems to be the same.
I think you got it this one.
All right.
Can you go, I know you can adjust it up and down. No, up higher. I think the farther away this is better.
Yeah.
There, a little bit. And then
All right. So in this State's Exhibit number 54, there's a little arrow indicating an individual. Just in case it's not clear at this point, what side of the house are we looking at here?
This would be the west side,
All right. And the individual is standing where?
right by the front porch on the west side.
All right. So he would be in front of that satellite
Yes,
dish. Okay. And the area that he's putting the stuff on, whatever it was that the area where India had indicated, I believe, number 2, alerted number 2,
yes.
and showing you states 55. What is that indicating or showing?
That, I believe, is the flash from the ignitable liquid after it was ignited.
Okay, so when we see this large ball of light, what is that? What significance, if any, does that have to you?
So what that is, it's the vapors emitting off the ignitable liquid, gasoline or lighter fluid, whatever they may be used, is the vapors, once an open flame is introduced to those vapors, it ignites, it poofs. Just similar to when you light, if you leave the gas on your grill and you go to light it, you get that whoosh. That's what this is.
All right. And for the purposes of this, if I were to take a match to that wooden porch and hold it there, would I ever see this poof or flash of light like this?
Not without ignitable liquid being there.
All right. So for you, when you see that big flash or big poof, is that an indicator to you that something, an accelerant is being used?
Yes.
Okay. And states exhibit number 56.
That's after the fire was ignited and the subject running away from the house.
All right. So did this confirm, you had visual confirmation also to support your now opinion of where the fire started and that it was intentional?
Yes.
At this point in time, I'm just going to go through with him, I know it might be laborious, but the exhibits of those items, so.
Sure.
All right, so Investigator Peterman, I had you bring in a series of packets that have been labeled, I think starting with states exhibits. Can you read that?
Yeah, this is sample 1
What is it?
Yeah, the number.
on exhibit 44.
Okay, starting with exhibit number 44, I asked you to bring in a series of samples that you took that day, is that correct?
Yes.
And these samples here, I think there's 10 of them. What do they represent?
This represents the fire debris that you've seen where the yellow markers were on the slide presentation, 1 through 10. These are the actual collected samples placed in fire debris evidence bags, sealed, labeled, and then submitted to our forensic laboratory from the fire scene.
All right, so just so that we can be, thorough in this, State's Exhibit, what number is it?
44?
44. That one you said is item number 1?
Yes.
All right, and is that, how do you know that that's item number 1?
Well, it has my writing on it with the item number 1, and then when I seal the evidence bag, I put my initials over the seal, and then it has our case number on it.
Okay. And then State's Exhibit number 45, you could please identify that?
Same thing, sample number 2, west side of porch at floor level, has my initials on it.
Okay, and State's Exhibit number 46.
This is number 3, south side, southwest corner of porch on ground. Number 4 is the blue bag.
Oh.
Has my initials on the evidence bag.
And State's Exhibit number 47, now that's in a blue bag, but if you need to open it up,
No,
We need to interrupt.
that's great.
It was 46, sample number 3, is that what you said?
46, item number 3.
Thank you.
47, item number 4. The reason it's in a blue bag because there's a hole in the actual bag, so I don't want to take it out because it'll go everywhere.
But you just put it in that blue bag?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
you had an opportunity to look at that, and
Yes.
review it?
Yep.
Before you put it in the bag this
Yep.
morning?
Yes.
Okay. That's 4? Okay.
Sample number 5, south side east porch, ground level,
And what exhibit number is that?
and that's 48. They're again identified with my initials on the seal.
Okay, and State's Exhibit 49?
Number 6, front porch floor at doorway, and it's identified as sample number 6.
State's Exhibit number 50?
Number 7, front porch floor, south. Fire debris.
I'm sorry, what item number was that?
Number 5, exhibit number 50.
Item 5 or item 7?
Oh, I'm sorry, item 7, exhibit number 50.
Okay. And State's Exhibit number 51? What's the item number on that?
Is item 8, front porch floor, near front window.
State's Exhibit number 52?
Item number 9, front porch east side at steps, top steps.
And State's Exhibit number 53?
53 is item 10. This is the aluminum siding near where the satellite dish was located on the west side of the house.
Once you collect these things, you mark them, identify them, what do you do with these items then?
They're then prepared, sealed, transported into our forensic lab in Reynoldsburg.
In Reynoldsburg, would that be somewhere near Columbus?
Yes,
All right. And what's in Reynoldsburg?
that's where our office is located and the location of our forensic laboratory.
All right. And the purpose of submitting to your lab is to what?
To identify those samples if there was any ignitable liquid presence within the sample.
And in the 10 items that you submitted were all items that were alerts or from the areas that were alerts from Indians, is that right?
That's correct.
You said earlier that you were a canine handler at one point in time, fair?
Yes.
And Investigator Weber told us about training and dogs and why they're used. Are dogs always correct?
They're not always correct, but they have a much better sense of smell than humans do.
Do the dogs sometimes hit on things that are not accelerants?
Yes,
And why is that?
because there's a presence of some type of petroleum-based form that may be in there, like such as nail polish or roofing material or some other material that has a petroleum base on it that the dogs indicate on.
All right. And so the dog doesn't know whether it's smelling charcoal fluid or petroleum-based nail polish. Is that fair?
That's correct.
All right. So they hit it, you collect it, and then you send it to the lab.
Verified by the laboratory analysis.
There you go. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Mr. Hardy?
Coach, just 1 minute.
Amen.
While he's talking, let me just, Investigator Peterman, once you do what you've done here today, as far as determining who would have set the fire based on your finding that it was intentionally set, do you have any involvement with determining who that was?
Yeah, we work with the local authorities and assisting any way that we can in finding out who's responsible for setting that fire.
All right. And in this case, the Akron Police Department took that portion of the investigation. Is that fair?
Yes.
So you did not interview people or do further investigation regarding who might have set that?
No, that was all Akron PD.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Hardy.
Good morning, Mr. Peterman. You know I'm Scott Riley. We actually met this morning, correct?
Correct.
Just a couple very quick questions for you. I've had an opportunity to go through your report of investigation. We talked, that's a 6-page document, correct?
Yes.
And then after that 6-page document, there are 4 one-page addendums, correct?
Yes.
And that just updated on the progress or what you were doing, if anything, after April of 2016, correct?
That's correct.
And in October of 2016, October 26, you make a notation that you made contact with the Akron Police Department.
Yes.
And then the very next day, October 27th of 2016, you returned, there's a physical evidence receipt showing return of the physical evidence you had to the Akron Police Department, correct?
I believe it was returned to Akron Fire.
Akron Fire. Sorry, my F looked like a P, so
Okay.
my bad. AFD, not APD. On December 7th of 2016, there's a notation that you contacted Detective Tanisha Stewart, correct?
Yes.
And as far as you knew, she was the lead investigator for Akron Police Department as it relates to this case, correct?
That's correct.
And then on January 9th of 2017, there's another notation that you returned video evidence to the Akron Fire Department, correct?
That's correct.
And when you say that you returned the video evidence to the Akron Fire Department, do you know exactly what was returned to Akron Fire?
That could have been the DVRs that were taken out of the house and the actual DVs themselves that our forensic lab would have put together.
But you can't say whether it was the videos obtained from 719 Fultz versus 714 Fultz, let's say.
I'd have to look at the evidence sheet. All the evidence for that was turned over to Akron Fire.
So essentially you closed out what you had in terms of evidence, both physical as well as video, sent it back to Akron Fire.
Yeah, since they were the lead agency per se, we were assisting them that it was better that they hold on to the evidence.
All right, thank you. Nothing further.
Redirect, Mr. LaFrenzy?
We're good, thank you, George.
All right, so, Mr. Peterman, I do understand that you are coming back. I will give you the oath when you come back, but I will instruct you between now and the time you come back to testify, you are not to discuss your testimony here today, the state of your testimony, and unless it's in preparation for your next testimony, you'll speak to no one about your testimony.
That's correct. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, you're excused. Thank you.
Can you, I'm sorry, Barb, just briefly, I want to just... given you concerning your conduct. It's important for you to be fair and attentive throughout the trial. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. This includes family, friends, and the media. You must not post or read anything about this case on the internet or any electronic device, including cell phones. Any such discussion, if discovered, could lead to a mistrial and severely compromise the party's right to a fair trial. Do not permit anyone to discuss this case with you or in your presence. Do not form or express an opinion on this case until it's finally been submitted to you. I have 10:20, so if you'll be back in the jury room at 10:35, we'll proceed with the rest of our morning session. We're
Rise,
adjourned.
please.
Oh, notepads upside down in your chairs.
of Common Pleas is again in session. The Honorable Christine Croce presiding.
Thank you. You may be seated. State may call its next witness.
Here in the state is going to call Molly Jordan.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat there in the witness chair. Once you're seated and settled, take your mask off, and then I'll just ask that you speak into the microphone so we can hear your testimony.
Good morning, ma'am. If you would please introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your full name and spell your last name for the court report.
My name is Molly Jordan. Last name is Jordan.
And maybe, just in case, you spell your first name too.
Mollie.
Thank you. And Ms. Jordan, how are you employed?
I'm employed by the State Fire Marshal's Forensic Lab,
And where is that located?
Reynoldsburg, Ohio.
And how long have you worked for them?
10 years.
And what do you do for them?
My title is Criminalist, so I analyze evidence for latent prints, fire debris analysis, and I can also swab for DNA.
All right. And in order to hold that job in the Ohio State Fire Marshal's office, what kind of qualifications do you need?
I have a bachelor's degree in forensic science.
Okay. And beyond your bachelor's degree, do you have additional training or continuing education?
Yes, when I was hired in with the fire marshal's office, I did a 10-month in-house training with our lab supervisor, specifically in fire debris analysis. So after that, I was proficiency tested on my own, so like a blind case to make sure that I know how to do the analysis correctly and I can get the correct results. And then every year from there on out, we do continuing education. We try to do one training a year, so we'll take advanced fire debris classes, classes that have to do with petroleum-laced backgrounds, things that I might run into when I'm analyzing evidence for ignitable liquids.
All right. And you work for the fire marshal. Do you ever go out to scenes or, you know, like our investigator was a fireman also. Do you have to be a fireman or a law enforcement officer in order to hold your position?
No.
Okay. Your position would be strictly scientific. Is that fair?
Correct. Any evidence that's picked up is brought to the lab, and that's where we receive it.
Okay. In your 10 years with the fire marshal's office, have you held the same position?
I have.
All right. And during that time frame, do you keep any kind of track or records of how many items you've tested for accelerants?
I did at one point.
Okay.
I haven't looked recently. I think the last time I looked, it was about 1,500 cases I have worked.
And what would that point have been that you?
That was a couple years ago.
All right. So it's fair to say that you've done a significant number of tests on items presented to you for accelerants?
Correct.
Okay. So before we start with this specific case, kind of tell us a little bit about when you say an accelerant, what does that mean in your world?
So an accelerant or ignitable liquid is something that is used to initiate or start or continue a fire.
All right. And what are there certain things that those accelerants are typically made of?
In our world, we call them hydrocarbons, but in the layman's terms, it's just organic properties that can easily ignite.
All right. And what are the most common types of accelerants that you find?
Basically gasoline. It's easily accessible. We all put gas in our vehicles. That's usually a very accessible ignitable liquid.
All right. And so what is it, and maybe we're getting too far into the weeds, that makes a substance flammable?
I'm not.
Okay. That's probably a bad question. there are different types of accelerants, right? Fair?
Yes.
Why don't you tell us the different types of accelerants?
So when we work a case, we classify accelerants. So when the investigator sends us evidence, they're basically wanting to know if there's any ignitable liquid or accelerant in this debris that's really not supposed to be there. So when we test, we can classify it as a gasoline, we can classify it as a petroleum distillate or an isoparaffinic product. So we have protocols and things that we follow in order to put these in the correct classifications, or if nothing's there, there's nothing there, and we'll report that out as a negative. But we cannot report anything out unless we have something to compare it to. So we have cabinets that we keep all samples in. So I can run, a sample that looks like this and say, okay, I know that this is a gasoline because it looks like our gasoline standard. Same thing with all the other ignitable liquids that we can report out.
All right. And when you say looks like this, you don't mean visually looks like, correct?
Well, I didn't talk about the testing yet, but basically when it's tested, it comes up on the computer screen and it just looks like a bunch of peaks. And the peaks mean something to me. It's telling me what that organic compound is. So I can also compare that to my gasoline reference, for example, and I can say, okay, well, this looks similar. Gasoline has like 400 components in it. We don't look for all 400, we look for the primary, but so like when I say visually, I'm looking at what we would call a chromatogram, and it's a bunch of peaks and they have a specific pattern for that ignitable liquid.
All right, so let's go now and talk about the process.
Okay.
So basically, an investigator goes out, they collect samples, they bring them to you, and they go, Ms. Jordan, do your thing. What do you do?
So when we take it back, we'll take it to our prep lab, and I think you've seen they're in the fire debris bags. We will test them in the fire debris bags as they bring them to us. So we basically cut a little hole in the bag and we put a carbon strip. The carbon strip is just about this big, but it's very absorbent. So I hang it in the bag, and then I will actually put that in an oven overnight. So the oven's only about 60 degrees Celsius, so it's not too hot. And a lot of people ask me, why are you putting something that's already been from a fire scene in an oven in the first place? And what that does is it warms it up, so all the volatiles will come and attract to that charcoal strip, because that charcoal strip is what we need to do our analysis. So the next morning I come in and I'll take the sample out and I'll take the charcoal strip out and put it in a little vial, and then I put some solution in there to draw out the volatiles from the charcoal strip to the solution, and then that is what I run on my instrument to be able to analyze.
All right. And then what's the instrument that you run these on?
It's called a gas chromatograph mass spectrometer, and we call it GCMS for short.
All right. I like that better. So when you put it on that machine, that is a process that goes through, and then it prints out this report you've told us about. That's what did you say it was not a
Chromatogram.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's where you then analyze the peaks, and then you make a determination based on your training and experience as to what you're looking at.
Yes.
Now, you also said that you kept samples in your lab.
Yes.
And isn't gas just gas? I mean, in other words, if you have gas, why do you have to have samples of different types of gas?
Because you never know what one entity is putting in their gas.
All
There
right.
might be something different, but basically they're a lot the same.
All right, so in other words, if I buy one brand of charcoal fluid, they might have a proprietary blend that's different from another.
Correct, but it would still have the same pattern or the same things that we're looking for.
All right, and so for example, on lighter fluid, what would be in that you would be looking for?
It's really hard to explain it without I don't have a picture to show you, but basically we're looking for peaks that are normal alkanes. It doesn't.
It's okay.
So basically really big peaks, and in between these big peaks are little peaks, and they all mean something. They're all an organic compound. So I can put that up against our standard and look at the different ions of this unknown and decide if it is a petroleum distillate, or if it's gas, or if it's nothing at all.
All right, and the purpose for having the different maybe brands of those things is that once you determine that maybe it is charcoal fluid, you might even be able to determine what maybe even brand it is?
We don't do that. We are not able to say that it is Kingsford, or it is Charcoal Chef, or it is from the dollar store. We're not able to differentiate that because the blend is so similar.
Okay. And so that's not something that can be done?
Correct.
All right. And then once you put the vial of this
Charcoal
substance
strip.
into your
GCMS.
You get your report, you analyze it, then do you make an opinion or render an opinion?
Yes.
And do you then memorialize that opinion in any way?
Yes, I will write a report.
All right. I'm going to show you, may I approach the judge?
You may.
State's Exhibit number 58 for identification purposes. Okay.
On page 2.
2. Well, it's the CV. If you would take a look at that and tell me if you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
This is the report that I generated from the case.
All right, and it's appears to be 2 pages, is that fair?
Yes.
And what's the second page?
It is my CV. We always send these out with whatever analyst work the case. We'll send it out with their report.
All right, and CV, just in case, that's in your world, basically your resume.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you keep that.
Okay.
So in that report, when was that report dated?
April 27th, 2016.
All right. So I'll ask you then, and I kind of jumped ahead by giving you the report, but did you have the opportunity to analyze items that were presented to you from a fire that took place at 719 Fultz in the city of Akron, Summit County, Ohio?
Yes.
How many items did you test? Well, first of all, how many did you receive?
We received 10.
And how many did you test?
I tested 10.
All right. And I'm going to show you. Investigator Peterman was here just previously, and he went through. Let me have that one. State's exhibits number 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, and 53, and I have those here for you. So starting, let's see, I got them backwards now. Starting with 44, he had testified this would be item number 1 that he collected from the scene, okay? Do you recognize this?
Yes.
And how do you recognize it?
I recognize it because this is our label right here, Ohio State Fire Marshal Forensic Lab. When we receive evidence in, every piece of evidence gets its own identifier, which is this label right here. And then my initials are on the seals that I heat sealed it or opened it and closed it. So all my initials are on there.
All right. And so I guess to be thorough, we'll just take that State's Exhibit number 44. State's Exhibit number 45. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, the label and then my initials.
And that label indicates that's item number 2.
Yes.
And State's Exhibit number 46.
Our item number 3, and then my initials are up here.
Okay. Oops, that's right. And this one here was leaking, so I think we put this in a bag. So
Your number's on the outside.
yeah, no,
Oh, okay.
I want you to be able to see that.
So that's item number 4, our barcode, and then my initials.
Okay, and that's State's Exhibit 47. State's Exhibit 48.
Our number 5 and my initials.
State's Exhibit number 49.
Is our number 6 and my initials are up here.
Missed one? Let's see, well. State's Exhibit number 51.
That's 8. And then my initials are up here. Did we skip 7?
Yes, we did. And State's Exhibit number 52.
My number 8, number 9, I'm sorry, and then my initials.
Okay. And State's Exhibit number 53.
It's our number 10 and my initials are up here.
Okay. And then State's Exhibit. And State's Exhibit number 50.
Our number 7 and the initials are right here.
Okay. So that should be items 1 through 10, correct?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you what I marked as State's Exhibit number 57. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
So the charcoal strips I was talking about, after I analyzed the case, we actually saved the charcoal strips. So they're each sample is in its own little vial, and this charcoal strip right here is what I hung in the bag when it was in the oven. So this is actually holding the volatiles so they can be retested if necessary. So this actually becomes evidence, and we just label it as an extract with our case.
And then each one of those is labeled with each vial is labeled with your initials, the case number, and the item number?
Each vial is listed with the case number. There's not enough, not my initials,
Oh.
there's not enough room to write on it.
And the item
But
number?
the envelope is sealed with my initials on it.
And does it have the item number on it?
Yes, on the vial, each vial has its
Okay.
own item number.
Very good. And so these would be the actual evidence, what you extracted from it, and that's where the testing came from?
Correct.
All right. And then, so let's talk about your report where you memorialized your findings. So you did that, and did you get results in this case?
I did get results on some of the samples.
All right. And were you able to render an opinion after reviewing the results as to whether there is accelerants in each of these items?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to put up here what is a copy of the report I gave to you so that the jury can follow along. Does that appear to be an accurate copy of the item, the exhibit you have in front of you, your report?
Yes.
Okay. So on this, basically it has the date of April 27, 2016, and then it says submitted by Donald Illig, and who is he?
He's another one of our state investigators.
All right. And then you have listed under that 1 through 10.
Correct.
And does the numbers 1 through 10 correspond to the 1 through 10 in the vials and the soil samples?
So the vials are not on this report. This report is what they submitted to us.
Oh, I see.
So the 10 items.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you just use that for the report.
Right.
And then on the right side it says tests or tests. What does that mean?
It's like our little code. Instead of writing out ignitable liquid testing, we'll put an A for that testing, and then other testing have other letters that we use.
All right. And so for this purpose, you're only looking for ignitable fluids.
Correct.
And it was the same test for each one.
Correct.
All right. And so what were your conclusions on item number 1?
Item number 1 was positive for gasoline.
All right. And I guess to keep it clear, were any other items 1 through 10 also gasoline?
Yes, just item number 10. 1
All right,
and
so
10.
1 and 10 were gasoline.
Correct.
All right. Were there any other positive results?
Exhibits number 2, 7, 8, and 9 were positive for a medium petroleum distillate.
All right. So what's the difference between a medium petroleum distillate and gasoline?
So when we think about the refinery process of crude oil and the distillation process that it all goes through, the gasoline is refined and distilled completely different than a medium petroleum distillate is. So from my point of view, on the chromatograms, they have completely different patterns and they have completely different peaks. So for those two, there's not really, like I said, gasoline has like almost 400 items, like components in it. It's completely different than a medium petroleum distillate. The pattern's completely different. It looks like a bell curve. Gasoline is like this long, lots of peaks, so it's completely different classification.
And so that the jury knows, I mean, I think gasoline is pretty self-explanatory, right? When you
Yes.
use the word gasoline, it's like we all use it, correct?
Yes.
And when you say medium petroleum distillate, what would be examples of a medium petroleum distillate?
A very common medium petroleum distillate is like the charcoal lighter fluids you would use to start your grills. There's also minerals, spirits, paint thinners, things that you would use to clean your brushes when you're painting. That's usually a medium petroleum distillate. Some wood stains are medium petroleum distillates, things like that.
And what is, if there's a medium, is there a light or a heavy?
Yeah, so there's a light, a medium, and a heavy. And what that is that's based on the boiling point. And I didn't really talk about that, but during the analysis of the GCMS, the GC, because it's two instruments coupled together, so the GC separates my sample by boiling point. So early, like alcohols, isopropanols are very volatile. Those will come out sooner than, say, like a diesel fuel or a kerosene. So that's what's important for us, is we're separating it by boiling point, lights, mediums, and heavies. And then the mass spec lets us know like what all these peaks are. It's telling us that this is that chemical structure, or this peak is that chemical structure. So coupled together is how I get the chromatogram that I'm using to analyze in casework.
All right. And so what would be some examples of a light petroleum distillate?
Coleman fuel, some like Zippo lighter fuel, Roncinol lighter fluid, a lot of the lighter fluids, and then Coleman fuel are the first ones that come to mind.
All right. And what would be a heavy distillate?
Heavy would be like a kerosene or a diesel.
All right. And then you had some items that were submitted to you that you found no accelerant. Is that fair?
Yes.
And what were those items?
Items number 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And as far as the likelihood of finding a distillate, an accelerant, if it's in there, will you find it?
If it's in there, we will find it. Now, if something was completely consumed by the fire, and say it's something that's light and it's going to evaporate quickly, and the fire completely consumed it, we might not find it because it's all burnt up and evaporated away. If they didn't take the right sample, we might not find it. So it just depends.
All right. If you had a mixture of gasoline and a medium petroleum distillate, would you be able to tell that?
Yes.
All right. And that would have been labeled as a mixture, is that fair?
Yes, we would have reported it out as both gas and MPD on whatever specific item.
All right. And so you had indicated the ignition point, right? The temperature that it ignites, is that how you determine the three?
The boiling point.
Boiling point, I'm sorry, you said boiling point. And do any of these items, gasoline or medium petroleum distillates or others, have different, strike that. We have a moment, Judge.
Yes.
Ms. Jordan, the opinions that you have rendered here today and that are memorialized in your report, I think it's State's Exhibit 57, is that right? 58. Are all those opinions within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes.
Thank you. I have nothing further, Judge.
Mr. Riley?
One second.
I just didn't just do the customary.
Judge, at this time, and I know Ms. Jordan's coming back, at this time, we have no questions for her.
Oh, that's right.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Jordan, I'm going to excuse you for today, but I want to caution you, I will, again, issue the oath when you come back, but I do not want you to talk about the state of your testimony here today or any future testimony unless it's in preparation for your next testimony, okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much. You're excused.
Thank you.
And then you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state's going to call Phyllis Polson. Watch these bags here. Judge is going to swear you in. Okay.
Put yours right here. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat. You may proceed, Mr. D'Angelo.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Ma'am, can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Phyllis M. Polson.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. You want to
Oh.
please remove your mask? Sorry, I forgot to give you that instruction.
That's okay.
That's okay. And then speak into the microphone so we can hear your testimony.
Okay.
Thank you.
Phyllis M. Polson. P as in Paul, O-U-L, S as in Sam, O-N as in Nancy.
Ms. Polson, are you currently employed?
Yes, but yes.
Okay. And where are you employed at?
I
Hold
work.
on a second. Yeah, can you swing that? Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Just so that the attorneys can see your testimony. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah. I have a good view, but I have the best view, so
I am a retired dispatcher. I now work as the assistant operating manager for Dollar Tree.
Okay. And you were a retired dispatcher.
Yes.
For what department were you a dispatcher?
Akron Police and Fire and EMS.
How long were you a dispatcher for Akron Police and Fire and EMS?
30 and a half years.
All with the same agency?
Yes.
Okay. And what did your duties entail as a dispatcher for that agency?
Listening to people that needed help, screaming people, people that were in dire straits for someone to send help to them, whether it was for fire, EMS, or police.
And then you would take their 911 calls, I presume?
Yes, as a rotation.
All right. And then how would the police and fire department know to get there?
I'm sorry?
How would they know to get to the emergency? Would you dispatch them or?
Yes, actually the call taker for the day would take the call. It is computerized. It automatically goes to the appropriate place, whether it be EMS, fire, or police.
Okay. Now, Ms. Polson, I'd like to draw your attention to April 18th of 2016. Do you remember that date?
Somewhat.
Okay. And were you working, do you know if you were working in your capacity as a dispatcher for the Akron Police and Fire Department Dispatch Center on that date?
I was call taking that day.
Okay. And by call taking, that means that you're actually answering the 911 calls?
That is correct.
Did you have an opportunity to receive a series of 911 calls regarding a fire at 719 Fultz on that day?
Yes.
Okay. And when you received those calls, can you please describe the demeanor of the callers?
They're mostly they're mostly upset. They can't believe what's going on, and they're usually excited.
Okay. And in these two calls that the jury is going to hear,
Okay.
were these callers relaying to you an event that they were observing or that had recently occurred?
An event that they were observing at the time they made the call.
Okay. Now, Ms. Polson, are the 911 calls that you take recorded?
Yes.
Are they kept in the regular course of the business activity of the Akron Police Department?
Yes.
Is it the regular course of the Akron Police Department to record and save 911 calls that they receive?
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, I'm going to ask to publish State's Exhibit 59 at this time.
Conversation recorded on April 18, 2016 at 3:39 on Channel 4.
Ms. Polson, I paused the call there. Do you recognize that first voice you heard? Maybe not the lady giving the date and time stamp, but do you recognize the second voice?
Yes, I do.
And whose voice is that?
It would be mine.
And you've heard this call prior to coming into court today?
Yes, I have.
Fair and accurate depiction of the call that you took on that date?
Yes, it is.
Or one of the calls? Okay.
I heard the house that on fire across the street from me on a Fultz Street.
What's your address, ma'am?
I'm at 714 for the Germany, directly across the street from this burning room.
Okay, your address is 714 Fultz?
Yeah, and it's right across the street from me.
Okay, what's your name again?
Dennis Huggins.
Alright, we'll get someone out there. Do you know if anyone lives there?
Yeah, there's my husband is going over, he said somebody, there's two things over there, but I don't know them well. He's going over to see if there's anybody in the house.
Okay. I'll wait.
No, she's got our neighbors, and she's going to see somebody, but
Yeah, they're already on the way.
they're on the way now. Are you sure somebody's in the house? He said Tommy lives in the basement over there, so he's, I guess, going to go make sure that he's out, or...
Yeah, how long will it take? Because I was going to wait on the phone.
Okay, she was going to wait on the phone. Yeah. I think about Tomlin over there.
Alright, ma'am, we'll just let them know. You said someone lives in the basement?
Yeah. Yeah, go.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's trying to put his clothes on.
That's okay. I'm going to hang up. I'm going to just put it down if somebody goes there, okay?
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Your Honor, at this time I'm going to publish the second call, which is State's Exhibit number 60.
You may.
Conversation recorded on April 18, 2016 at 3:41 on Channel 4.
Miss Polson, I paused the call at this point. Did you hear your voice on this call?
Yes, I do.
And have you listened to this call prior to coming into court today?
Yes.
Fair and accurate depiction of a 911 call you took on April 18th of 2016 regarding 719 Fultz.
Yes.
There's a fire on Fultz Street. Ma'am, we do have units responding. Do you know if there's anyone in the house?
Yeah, somebody, my son said somebody was upstairs in the house and
They tell them to jump out. I don't know. Are they on the roof or are they on the top floor? They're on the top. I think they're on the roof or the top floor, though. They're on the top floor. All right, they're already on the way. Okay. All right, thank you. Bye. Bye.
Your Honor, I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Porter, Mr. Riley?
We have no questions.
All right, Ms. Coulson, yours, please, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this morning. I want to remind you, we're going to take our lunch break. It's 11:20. Our next witness, we've moved up, so we're going to be prepared to go at 12:30.
So if you'll be back in the jury room at 12:30, we'll begin. Remember the admonition I've given you at all breaks. It's important that you be fair and attentive throughout the trial. You may not discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. This includes family, friends, and the media. You must not post or read anything about this case on the internet or any electronic device, including your cell phone. If discovered, this could lead to a mistrial and again severely compromise the party's right to a fair trial. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence, and do not form or express an opinion on this case until it has finally been submitted to you. Leave your notepads upside down on your chairs, and we'll see you at 12:30. We're adjourned.
All right, please. Jurors can remain in the jury room for a few minutes, please.
But I'm by all, so they're like, stay over here with all this stuff. All right. All right, thank you, bye.
We are insignificant.
I only shoot bald guys.
Not completely bald. Most of us are.
You too. You guys out of here?
Nope, another 30 feet.
Get both of them. Hey, I'm here. Do we have a drone available? Damn. Okay. That's right. Adam doesn't fly. Pretty boy. That's not good. Right. As soon as I can get somebody to talk to me, I'll just let you know. But yeah, I'm here with them. They got me. I don't think we have to find this. If you didn't see the cops coming down here, you would never know it's there.
Hey, Tim.
I will do that right now. I'll send it to the newsroom. And yes, you did. And I am upstreaming. Yeah, Chris, I called Chris. He got me up. He was gonna let Digital know. I'm gonna still send some just in case.